During the last 2-3 days, Google has started experimenting with showing this little badge across the search results to show people whenever an article is a shorter article. So you'll see this little badge called 5-minute read, and it just basically shows the reader that here's something that's pretty dense and straight to the point and something they can easily get some information from. So this is a very, very interesting move from Google for us bloggers, because for a long time we have learned that you rank better with long word counts. So of course not necessarily because it's better, but just because you can pack more into such an article. So this might be the next step or the next way for Google to ask us to write better content that's more helpful. And many times it also means that it's not like a 25 or 3,500 word read. So in this video, I want to address why I think this is happening, what it means for us with our strategy of writing on underserved topics, and also where I think this is taking us and how we should plan this into future articles. So first, you might be wondering, why 5 minutes? Why not 8 minutes or 2 minutes? And here I think we just have to rely on that Google has the data. If anybody knows how long an article you want to read, it's Google. So somehow they came up with 5 minutes. And if you calculate it into words and how long such an article should be, we'll get back to the numbers, but I have tried to crunch this number a little bit, and I think we're definitely below 1,000 words. So it's probably shorter than what most of us are writing these days, because most courses and most YouTubers, myself included, say that you'll probably write around 1,500 words for a pretty short regular article. So I've been trying to think about why Google is doing this, and I think there are different reasons why. So one of the things that we've seen over the last couple of years is just a lot more content because of display ads, because the rise of educational and informational content is just way more articles, because people are moving away from affiliate-based models in general to just producing a lot of content that you put ads on, because we've seen these review updates. So we've seen some of the bigger players in the affiliate space also try and target this type of articles now. And then of course there's a whole issue with AI generated articles and just massive websites with hundreds of thousands of articles produced in a short time that actually get indexed in Google and start ranking. So there's more articles on the web. And that also means that Google has to use way more resources to scan and index and figure out what to rank there. So of course this puts pressure on the whole Google machine that they need to ramp up, or they need to take steps also to reduce the amount of content. So that's in Google's interest to just have less content. And with this last helpful content update, they actually also directly ask us to remove some content on our sites if it's not helpful, in order to make the whole domain, the whole website rank better across all the articles. So it's a site-wide ban or site-wide effect, you can say, not a ban, because it's not like you're in or you're out. They say this is a weighted thing, so you can be more, it can be less, but it's actually helpful in many cases to remove content from your site. So I think this is another logical step for Google to just create a web or encourage a web with less content, so it's easier for them to index and do a really good job on crawling all of it. And secondly, I think this is also just really because it's better for the user. So we've seen the word count just go up and up and up and up. And if you're always trying to double the word count when you want to beat an existing article, that just creates a web with longer and longer articles. And I think that's really not helpful to the reader. I mean, who wants to read through like 3,000 words in order to figure out why dogs can't eat bananas, for example? It just doesn't really make sense to go into such depth with every article just to beat the competition. And it also aligns perfectly with what I heard Tyler Bishop from Ezoic talk about after they had a meeting. They had a session with Google about the recent core updates and the helpful updates. So Google shared some insights with Ezoic. So one of the things that Google said was that if a user spends excess time on a web page, so let's say like 8, 10, 12 minutes on a web page, that's not a good signal to Google necessarily, or in most cases it's probably not, because if it takes that long to learn like hardly anything, unless it's something that's very advanced, but the type of questions that we answer, like beginners questions about something, about a hobby or something like that, I don't think it's really helpful to try and keep the reader on your site for that long. Normally, we would want people obviously to stay as long as possible on our sites so they can see more ads. You know, the ads refresh once in a while. So the longer they stay on the site, even if they don't scroll a whole lot, these ads will refresh, and the longer people stay on your site, the more money we'll make, right? So we have to find a good balance here where we're super helpful, and maybe this 5-minute mark is a good thing to aim for, and not aim for like just as long as possible. And since this comes directly from Google, that spending a really long time on a page is not a quality signal to them in most cases, I think we need to take this seriously. And we see the same tone and direction from Google around this helpful content update. They put it like this: are you writing to a particular word count because you've heard or read that Google has a preferred word count? No, we don't. So it's pretty rare that they put a statement and then they just enter like, no, we don't. So they want us to know that there's not a magic word count or a specific number of words you need to write in order to beat that other article up there. And personally, I also think it is many times better with a short article. I mean, wouldn't you prefer to read an article that's shorter if the content is sort of the same, if it's just more dense and it's just gotten rid of all the extra fluff and all the little things that didn't really teach you much about this question to begin with? And of course, we also see this in video. We see it with shorter videos, YouTube Short, and the rise of TikTok and just shorter form content. But it's also important that we don't make a shift in our blog post to write too short, because there are also these two little nuggets from Google. They're saying, after reading your content, will someone leave feeling they've learned enough about a topic to help achieve their goal? So obviously the reader needs to learn enough to actually get what they came for. And they also put it like this: does the content leave readers feeling like they need to search again to get better information from other sources? So the information absolutely needs to be really, really good, and you need to put whatever should be there in the article. So the trick is to write better, and a good writer will be able to explain most things in 1,000 words. So let's talk for a second about what this could mean if you're following my strategies about targeting underserved topics. So Google also put this line here in the explanation of the helpful content update. The content will be less likely to perform well in search, assuming there is other content elsewhere from the web that's better to display. So that means that whenever you're losing to another article that's more helpful, or whatever Google looks for these days, there still has to be a competing article. So if you wrote the only article on the subject, you'll probably still rank. So remember, Google has to show something, and if you're the first or the only article up there, they will have to rank you. So this sometimes, I feel like this makes it too easy for us, and we learn that it's easy to rank with not always the best type of content because you're not really up against any competition. So a little analogy here: if you're running in a race and you're the only runner, of course you're gonna win regardless of how fast or how good you are, right? So that's really the strategy that's so powerful that I teach about the underserved topics, because you're not really competing against anything. Of course you'll get those rankings and much quicker. But I think we should start preparing for a web with more competition. Many times you'll find something there. You'll find a shorter article, or maybe a super long article that's not really helpful and not to the point. So maybe you should start targeting also topics, not just when you see that there's a super small word count, but if there's an excessive long article that's just like 2,500 words on why dogs can't eat bananas, for example. I mean, you should definitely be able to write a shorter version of that that's still helpful. So if you can grab those readers and Google sees that they stay there, they don't go back and find that other meteor article and read that afterward. If they found what they came for, I'm pretty sure you'll beat that long article with a shorter article. So of course, shorter articles just have to be better. So we need to teach our writers and teach ourselves as writers to write more straight to the point. Articles should be about one thing, one topic only, and then leave all that rest to another article specifically about that. We need to be even better at getting rid of fluff and filler content, and we shouldn't try to stuff in a lot of related words and such, like you also heard me ramble about in recent videos. So back to this little badge that Google is putting on the search results. I'll say it's not always super helpful. I would say sometimes it just doesn't really make sense. I saw a few examples where it said like less than 5-minute read, and then you get on the page and maybe it's like 5 lines of text, or it's really just a chart that's not super related to what you searched for. So it's not super advanced yet. I think they're really just calculating the words on the page, because I think at this point Google is pretty stressed out and stretched on their server capacities and their whole data center capacity. So I think they have issues crawling the whole web. So I don't think they came up with a super heavy algorithm to really decipher every article. I think they're basically just counting the words on the page. So it's pretty basic at this point. And I tried to dive into a lot of articles that had this badge, and the longest article I found was it was quite exactly 879 words. So I don't know if that's where you lose that badge, if you'll have that badge automatically if you're writing less than 880 words, but it's around there, I think. And it makes sense because people normally read between 150 and 300 words per minute. So that would put slow readers around that mark. So what action should you take right now? And I would say I'm not changing anything right now. I want to get some more data and see if this little sticker is staying on Google. But if it is, I think I'll try and teach my writers to write shorter and see if we can target many of the smaller topics in around 800-900 words maybe, and just see if we can get this badge on every single article, because I think it's gonna attract more clicks from Google if they roll this out like big time, where you'll see this 5-minute read button. But let's see what happens, because maybe they'll come out with a 7-minute read button next week. So this is absolutely something Google is testing right now. And then I think it makes sense to pay your writers the same per article. So let's say you normally buy 1,500 words from your writer, and now you're gonna order articles that are 1,000 words. So you can actually pay them more per word because the articles are shorter. So let's say you still want to pay them $50 or $30 per article. Since they're shorter, they'll get more per word. So they can put the same amount of time into it to actually cram the article down and really make it the best it could absolutely be. So I think this is a good thing for writers as well, that they don't have to just keep chucking as much content as possible if we can actually pay them a little bit more to write better and more dense articles. So what do you guys think about this? Put in the comments what you think. Do you think we are moving toward a web with shorter articles? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, and I'll see you guys next time.